Hey foodies, what's up guys? Okay, so last week I started or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. Damn, my memory, man. But anyway, I started my YouTube career with Debate by Daylight, and I talked about the spirit, and I asked, is she OP or is she fine as she is? What did I say about Spirit? Go back and watch it. I'm not telling you again. I'm not falling for this racket. But anyway, that's not the point. We're not talking about Spirit anymore. Today, we're going to talk about something different. We're going to go to what I think is actually an even more controversial subject within Dead by Daylight. That being the Legion. So, oh man, I think when you talk about the Legion, you get one of two extremes from people. Sincerely, it seems to me that the Legion strikes one of two reactions. That being, oh, that is my favorite character. I love the Legion. I cosplay as the Legion. I do fan art of the Legion. I love the Legion. Sometimes I even play them. and then and then you get the other reaction, right? Which is, oh, is it a Legion? Well, it's DC. Let's not play this game. That doesn't sound fun. I don't like the Legion. I don't like to, Dead by Daylight's already M1 simulator in the eyes of some people, so Legion just makes it where you hold M1 for even more time. But, so that's interesting to me. I find that fascinating. Why is it that how can a character exist that gets those types of reactions from people? Because, look, neither reaction is invalid. You're not wrong if you love the Legion, and you're not wrong if you hate the Legion. But, one thing I'm noticing with the Legion is I think people tend to throw logic out the window when they talk about the Legion. So what I mean by that is the people who hate Legion like to put them in this role of saying that they're just this F tier killer, that they're garbage, and that they take no skill to play. And it's kind of the usual thing. You're gonna hear that a lot. You're gonna hear that anytime somebody hates a killer. You're gonna get a lot of the same arguments of, oh, well, this killer, they take no skill, and oh man, they're bad for the game. They're killing the game. And then the side that really likes Legion, you're kind of hard pressed to get them to speak ill of the more controversial aspects of the character's design. And by the character's design, I mean how they play. Obviously, I'm not talking about, oh, I wish Joey was taller, which, I mean, we all do. I don't know why they did Joey like that, but anyway, that's not super relevant. That's not really what we're here to talk about. So let's get into it. Let's get into some Dead by Daylight. Let's debate by Daylight. Awesome. So today's topic is the Legion, and are they balanced? And before we go further, one quick disclaimer. The Legion is not a person. The Legion is a group of 4 people. So don't come in the comments section and tell me, hey Will, why do you not say he or she? It's they. It's 4 people. The Legion. It's not Legion singular like in Mass Effect. This is the Legion. I should not have to explain this, but I just feel like somebody's going to take issue with it. So yes, I'm going to refer to the Legion with plural pronouns this entire time. That's just how it is. It's not super relevant. I just want to get out ahead of that one. So, fight me or don't. I'd rather you didn't, but if you do, good luck to you. But anyway, the topic today is the Legion. Are they balanced? So, I mean, you probably know the formula we're going to do here, right? We're going to look at who the Legion are, what the case is for them being balanced, and then the case against them being balanced. And this time, I'm not going to say against when I get to it, because I'm not, I've made several videos. I'm not nervous anymore. I actually have already reached the point of not caring, so it's fantastic. But, all of that aside, this lengthy intro aside, let's do it. Let's get right into the thick of things and talk about part 1. Who are the Legion? The 10th chapter added to Dead by Daylight, titled Darkness Among Us. The Legion was added alongside Best Boy Jeff Johansson and maybe worst map, Mount Ormond Resort. Not really though, it's not Haddonfield, so it's got that going for it. But anyway, they were added in the Darkness Among Us chapter, and honestly, it was pretty instantly a controversial thing. So they came with this trailer where they're running alongside David King, right? Or at least Frank from the Legion is running. He's the leader of the Legion, and he was running alongside David King. Both of them presumably survivors. David turns around to look and see where the killer is, and when he turns back, Frank has put his mask on and he stabs David. And it's like, oh gosh, okay, wow, this is big. This is a big thing. Well, most people saw that and they said, oh man, it's a disguise killer. It's a killer that's going to come out of nowhere. Wow. And that's not what happened. So what we got instead was a power called Feral Frenzy, where Legion, right, supplants the usual method of killers, where, usually killers, what they do is they stab, right? So what Legion does is they stab very frequently, and they go and they inflict this status upon the survivor that is called the deep wound status effect. So the survivor has to stand there and hold M1 to stop from bleeding out and being downed. And what can be tossed on top of that is the fact that Legion can use it as a tracking perk. So if you're within a certain radius, when they hit one person with Feral Frenzy, it will reveal your location as well. So they can obviously compound a lot of damage, but we'll get on to that. We'll get on to the specific uses of the power in the case for and against part of the video. Legion came with 3 unique perks, those being Iron Maiden, Mad Grit, and Distortion. And, because it's not going to come back later, I'll just say that Distortion's a really good perk and the other 2 are completely forgettable. So, if you're trying to figure out who to buy as a DLC chapter and you're basing it off of perks, I would not recommend the Legion personally. I would not. But again, as mentioned previously, they came with Jeff Johansson and he's the best boy. So if you want that, there is that. But anyway, that is who the Legion is, right? That's the brief little intro. Who are they? What do they do? I mean, let's talk about it and let's move into part 2, right? The case for the Legion being balanced. Now, one thing you will commonly hear when people are trying to make a case against the Legion, right? When they're trying to say Legion is bad, I dislike the Legion. Well, one thing you're going to hear pretty frequently is that their power can be worked around simply by not healing, right? So the thing with the Legion is they have this really easy way to put everybody in the injured state. But the thing is, if the survivors don't heal, suddenly Feral Frenzy becomes a lot less useful of an ability. Sure, you could still hypothetically use it to track, but most killers are going to be decent at tracking anyway and kind of have a general idea of where the survivors are, except for maybe one. And Feral Frenzy has a pretty limited range anyway, so that's not a great argument. That's not a fantastic argument for Feral Frenzy being good. However, I think that people are overlooking the best part of the power there, right? And that is that if the survivors choose to work around your perk, they choose, well, you know what? I'm just not going to heal. That way I take some of the sting away from his power. Yeah, that's fine. But you stay an M1 away from being downed the entire game. You spend the entire match in the injured state. And that's pretty strong for a killer. That opens up snowball potential. Of course, I talk about snowball potential all the time, and that is absolutely true for the Legion. If you choose not to heal, then you will open up the potential for a massive snowball for the Legion, and they might be able to put you away rather easily. And then if you choose to heal, you're going to waste time. And one thing I always go back to with Dead by Daylight is it is a tug of war wherein each side is trying to waste the other's time until one can accomplish their goals. That's what it is. It is a struggle of time. You are fighting to maximize your time and to waste the time of the other side. And that survivor, that's killer, that is your goal. It is all about time. And the Legion has a time-wasting power. In addition to that, it's a time-wasting power for survivors, but it's a time-saving power for the Legion. So what Legion is able to do is they're able to save the time by quickly injuring most of, if not an entire team. And they also know the locations of most of, if not the entire team. That's valuable. That is really, really strong. However, it's worth noting that they have no insta-down ability. They're not particularly great in chases. They have no way to quickly down you in a chase using their power. If they're going to down you, they're going to do it with a traditional looping approach, which can be very frustrating against high-level survivors running meta perks. You hate to say that any killer is always just really at the mercy of what the survivors do, but that's generally true. Outside of the upper echelon of the S tier, you're talking nurse, you're talking spirit, you're talking possibly somebody like Pyramid Head, and the cases can go on and on. But the point I'm making here is that if you're talking about a mid-tier killer, you're not going to find one that can take the agency away from survivors. However, I don't think that is necessarily a bad thing. I don't think that every killer should be able to take away the agency from the survivors. So while I will acknowledge that it is a weakness of the Legion that they cannot take away that agency, can you imagine how brutally unfun the game would be if every killer could take away your agency? Because, one thing I like to mention is I play both sides frequently. It's not a thing where I go long breaks between playing one side or the other, or, heaven forbid that I only ever play one side or one character or something. I like to go around and get a feel for what the game is doing, how it feels from different perspectives. I try to run some non-meta perks. I try to play killers who aren't thought of as particularly good, and the ones who are thought of as good. I want to test these narratives. And in the case of the Legion, I definitely see the case for Feral Frenzy being a good power that is frequently misused. I would actually say that regardless of what the final ruling is here, I almost find it beyond debate to argue that most people are misusing Feral Frenzy. Feral Frenzy is all about saving yourself time and wasting the survivor's time. That's it. If you're using it for any other purpose, you're using it wrong. And when you use it correctly, well, I think it's a good case to be made. There is a good case to be made that the Legion becomes much stronger. They become a much more viable set of killers. But, that's the positive side. So let's move on to part 3, and let's look at the case against the Legion being balanced. Okay, so this one's interesting because there are 2 cases for the Legion being unbalanced that completely contradict one another. There is the more respected case, in my experience, right? The more respected case, that the Legion is not balanced because they are too weak. That is why they're improperly balanced. But then there is a vocal and notable enough portion of the community that thinks Legion is imbalanced because they have too easy of a time. And it's kind of hard for me to put myself in that headspace, if I'm being entirely honest. I don't know, man. I'm gonna try my best here because I always want to be as objective as I can while also maintaining that true objectivity is utterly impossible and everybody is biased to some extent. Now that that's out there, let's move into the case of why they would be imbalanced from a weakness perspective. Well, okay, so this one is undeniable. This is not something that I can really work my way around, that I can finesse my way around. Let's just own up to this. I mentioned earlier that survivors have some agency in counteracting the Legion's power. That's bad. That is always going to be a bad thing. It will always be a bad thing for a killer if survivors can dictate how the game is played. Now, again, I mentioned earlier that it's not the worst thing in the world for the Legion if the survivors decide not to heal. However, that's still a choice, much like with the plague, right? There is so much being left up to the survivors that it makes Legion games a little more unpredictable than a lot of killers. Because, you think about it, and sure, I guess technically you could say it's always unpredictable. Is the survivor going to go left or going to go right? However, you can pick patterns up some obvious ones. Well, is there a pallet to the left? Then yeah, they're probably going to go to the left. I mean, obviously. But with the Legion, you never really know what you're going to get, and it changes not only from game to game, but from teammate to teammate. Some are very, the best thing for Legion, right, is if you can go up against somebody who really wants to self-care, or somebody who's going to go around with their inner strength and they're going to look for some bones to cleanse so they can go heal, because they don't feel right if they're not healthy. They don't trust their looping enough to stay injured. That's the best case scenario for Legion. But here's another one. Masterful loopers who heal themselves possibly to 99%, and then they play the rest of the game, and if you approach them, they're going to heal up. Or maybe they don't even do that. Maybe you're going against somebody who has an injured build, because I feel like that 99% scenario, that's pretty rare, and you could even argue that that's not super useful as is. So let's move into something a little more useful and just talk about, what about the survivors who they're really confident, they're really good, and they kind of take your power away. They don't heal, they don't waste that time. The only time they waste is holding M1 to get out of the deep wound status effect, and that does not take long. Unless you are stacking the purple and green blades on top of each other, that is really not a meaningful amount of time. And even if you do stack those, man, I don't know, that just doesn't really feel like you're wasting that much of their time. Now, granted, Legion can still use Deep Wound for some time saving, in that they get the whole team injured quickly and they can find people quickly. So it doesn't completely remove the power. However, it removes the strongest part of the power, which is the survivor time wasting, because that is what you want to do. Additionally, while we're on the subject of the weakness of the Legion, let's talk about what the typical Legion game looks like. The Legion runs up to you, they tag you with Feral Frenzy, and then they turn around and they run away, and the only person they're really going to chase is the one that they're nearest when their power runs out. So most games against Legion, you're going to find that you just live in utter lack of fear of them. I always look forward to Legion games because unless my team is exceptionally bad or the killer camps me or something like that, I don't tend to die against Legions. I've noticed. And again, that goes back to people misusing the power, but it also points out that, there are plenty of people who aren't expert spirit players that, I would say kill me all the time. So there's obviously a discrepancy in the power between the top tier killers and the mid tier killers. But that's the case for the weakness side. Let's briefly address the case for, Legion is not balanced because they're too strong. So some people have an issue with the fact that while in Feral Frenzy, they can see you inside of lockers. The fact that they can see you at all. The fact that they can injure an entire team in a few seconds. And to me, again, I try so very hard to be objective and to see every side of this, but I don't know, man. I just look at it and I think that if you're mainly complaining about the locker thing, just be smart enough not to get a locker against a Feral Frenzy Legion, because you can counter that, right? So Legion does give you, your fellow survivors will give you the Deep Wound update underneath their names. So you know that Legion is using Feral Frenzy, and you know that they can find you. So that's not much of an argument. I will say, however, there have been games, I mentioned just a second ago how I don't find myself dying to Legion very often, but there are times where it feels like I've only just finished mending and Legion's right back. And those are those are good Legions. Those are Legions who keep the pressure up and they're always moving around and switching targets and they're using the power very properly. And in those moments, Legion can be very frustrating to play against. But, all things considered, I would say you have a much better case that Legion is not balanced because they're too weak and because they don't do enough, rather than making the case that they're not balanced because they're too strong and they do too much. But that's my 2 cents on that. Let's go on and move into the final part 4, and talk about the final verdict. So this one, I'm a little more conflicted on than I was with the Spirit. With the Spirit, I kind of went into it with this general idea that, I want to make a video where I say that while very strong, the Spirit is not OP. And that was just, that was a personal opinion of mine. With Legion, I kind of waffle back and forth a little bit, but I'm pretty confident in saying that my final verdict here is yes, the Legion is balanced. And what that comes back to with me, right, is the stats that I mentioned in the Spirits video. The stats that showed that every killer was averaging over 2 kills a game, which to me, that's the bare minimum, right? You want every killer, and this was in red ranks. This was not across all ranks. This is in red ranks, supposedly the highest level of play. Every killer was averaging at least 2 kills a game. Now, granted, you can have a killer averaging 2 kills a game, and they could still be too weak. I'm not making that case. I want to clarify that. There are several killers that I think could really use some buffs, and they're averaging over 2 kills a game. So I don't know, Food. You said that's pretty good. That's not the case I'm making. That's not the case I'm making at all. However, I will say that it's a good indication that even the weakest killers are not just pitifully weak. Even the weakest ones can be worked with to some extent, even if maybe the skill ceiling is really low on them. I'm not going to put up the chart again. Don't worry. I missed the chart too. But anyway, when it comes to the Legion, they're a great example to me of what I kind of like to see for the game, where you have these mid-tier killers that they're not great, they're not terrible. You can, if you go up against an optimal survive with friends, you load into a lobby and there's a Blendette, and there's a purple-haired Nia, and there's a Nancy Wheeler, and there's whoever your personal go-to for toxic survivors. Mine's Nancy. I run into so many toxic Nancys, and I can't explain it at all. But whoever it is that you see, and you're like, oh shit, it's them. If you load into a well-oiled machine, survive with friends, and your Legion, you're probably going to lose. If I'm being entirely honest here, trying to be intellectually honest with you, if the survivors play perfectly, you are going to lose as Legion. I believe that. However, I think it's a good thing that there are some killers, and I've named them enough. I've named which ones are really strong. There's some killers that you can load into and you play them knowing that no team can really test you. If you are a god tier nurse and you're locked in and you're focused, there's really not a team that's going to be able to stomp you. Somebody may escape, but nobody's going to be able to just stomp you. But I don't think every killer needs to be like that. I think that every killer should be, at the minimum, balanced in such a way, whereas if you play really well, if you play to the best of your abilities, you stand a fighting chance. That is the best case scenario, is that both sides are balanced in such a way where they stand a fighting chance. And I think Legion has that fighting chance. I think that Legion, again, when I look at it, through the lens I look at it through, and keep in mind, people have different qualifications for victory in this game. And that is one of the things that makes Dead by Daylight debating so interesting, is that we're not all talking about the same thing. For me, a win is getting 3 or more kills as a killer. As a survivor, a win is even a little harder to tell, right? Because it's not about pipping. I don't care about pipping. And at some point, I might make a video about what I consider a win, especially as a survivor. Because with killer, it's pretty simple. 3 or more kills, but even then, it can go a little further than that. Like, if I don't know if somebody DCs all of a sudden, is that really a win? I don't know, but that's not the point. That's a whole different thing we could do at another time. The point is, with Legion, they stand a fighting chance. And I think that means they're balanced. I personally do. But, I'm not the only guy with an opinion out there. So, let me know in the comments below. What do you think? Do you think the Legion are balanced? Or do you think that they're completely imbalanced? And if you think they're imbalanced, do you fall into the camp that thinks they're imbalanced because they're so strong? Or because they're too weak? Let me know below also if you don't, if you would. Let me know what you'd like to hear me debate next. Let me know what videos you'd like to see at some point. Then please, please, please do make sure to hit that like and subscribe, because we are trying to grow this channel, and I appreciate each and every bit of support that we can get on that. But that's it for me. I am so grateful that you guys hung around, that you watched this video, and I hope that you took something from it and that you had a good time. I'm Das Food, and I will see you guys next, next Friday. No, this Friday. This Friday for another Dead by Daylight video, and this Wednesday for a non-Dead by Daylight video, so keep your eyes peeled for that one. Until then, take care of yourselves, foodies. I love each and every one of you, and I will see you next time. Bye, foodies.